Hello and welcome to another video. Today, in this video, we will talk about monopoly and the way monopoly determines the quantity and the price. So it seems like there could be no two firms more different than the one that operates in a perfectly competitive environment and the one that operates in a monopolistic environment. But in reality, there are actually more similarities between them than there are differences. The main difference is this. A perfectly competitive firm faces a perfectly elastic demand. Again, what does that mean in plain English? In a perfectly competitive firm, no buyer or seller has any degree of market power. Therefore, the seller does not determine the price. Just earlier this morning, I did a little bit of personal budgeting consolidation. I have 416 shares of Mercury Energy. And this morning's price of those shares is $6.44. What that means is I can sell any or all of my shares for $6.44. Not a cent more. No one will be dumb enough to buy them from them, but not a cent less. I am not dumb enough to sell them at below the market price. So that is why demand for a perfectly competitive firm's product is horizontal. Again, you can sell whatever you want at the market price. I mean, the market for Mercury Energy shares isn't exactly perfectly competitive because there are certainly shareholders that can move market price by their large transactions. But in case of regular Joes like me, no matter how much I sell, the price stays the same. A monopoly, on the other hand, faces the entire market demand. We know that in 99.99% of the cases, demand is downward sloping. And since a monopolist is the only person, well, the only firm out there, they face the entire market demand. What does that mean? That means, in practical terms, that in order to sell more, monopolist has to lower the price. This is one of the most common misconceptions that I encounter in the classroom. People think that, well, a monopolist can just charge whatever they want. No, that's not the case. You do have a choice ultimately, and the choice being you can choose not to buy. So let me just give you a short numerical example to illustrate the relationship. Well, and also, and we'll be talking about this in class, demand is the same as the price here, the same as the marginal revenue. Each additional share of Mercury Energy that I sell is going to bring me its market price, $6.44. I will not have to lower the price by a cent because my transactions are not large enough to have any impact on the market. Think foreign currencies, same deal. Absolutely the same deal. There is a current exchange rate. You can sell or buy whatever volume of currency you want without having any impact on the exchange rate. I mean, obviously, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand would have an impact, but small players will not. So, let's say that a monopolist is currently selling 100 units. At $10 per unit. Doesn't matter what that is. Leicester City Football Club shirts. They would be less than, well, they would be more than $10, but doesn't matter. If I want to increase my sales to 120 units, I will have to lower the price. My demand is downward sloping. So I will have to lower the price to, let's say, $9. So what was my revenue here? My revenue here was 1,000. what is my revenue here? Well, I did my calculation prior to recording this video. $1,080. 120 times 9. So what is my marginal revenue? What is the extra revenue that I brought by increasing my production? So my marginal revenue is $80 or $4 per unit. I sold 20 extra units. I brought 80 extra dollars. So my marginal revenue is way, way lower than my market price. Is it possible for my marginal revenue to actually be negative? Is it possible for a monopolist to actually start selling more and actually lose on the revenue? And the answer is absolutely. Let me use a different color here. So let's say that in order to sell 120 units, I will need to drop the price to $8. In that case, and again, I did my calculation prior to recording the video, my revenue will be $960. So I will actually be at a -40 or -2 per unit. So graphically, what would that mean? That would mean that, remember, always remember that demand represents the price that my consumers are willing to pay. My marginal revenue is lower than the price. It actually intersects my horizontal axis and it actually goes into negative. As we can see, can absolutely happen. This is the key. This is the key graph for a monopolist. The rest is easy. The rest we already know what's going to happen. We know that for any firm, monopolist, oligopolist, perfectly competitive firm, this condition is always the case. Marginal revenue has to equal marginal cost. So we know also how marginal cost looks. Looks something like this. I look for the intersection. Here we go. That is my optimal quantity. Now, unfortunately, things aren't quite done just yet. In case of a monopolist, we not only have to care about quantity, because remember, in case of me selling Mercury Energy, I don't actually care about the price. I am not setting the price. All I have to care about is the quantity that I want to sell. Here, on the other hand, I also need to set the price. So, what price will I charge for this quantity? And a lot of times in classroom discussions, people think that, well, right here, this price right here. No, the price that I will charge, and that is always the case 100% of the time for every product, every form of industrial organization. The price that I will charge is the maximum price my consumers are willing to pay. What is the maximum price my consumers are willing to pay for this quantity? Well, it's right here. We have our quantity, we have our price. All right. So that is the monopoly picture. Let's kind of go back a little bit to what we have talked about in previous videos, actually in the very first video, as well as our class discussions. And let's look at surpluses. Consumer surplus is this. We know it's the difference between what consumers are willing to pay and what they have to pay. Producer surplus is this. Let me again use a different color here. It's the difference between the cost and what they receive. And if you recall from earlier discussions, this triangle here is part of the surplus that simply evaporates. Again, from the efficiency point of view, we don't care who gets the surplus, as long as someone does. This is the case of an inefficiency. This is part of the surplus that simply evaporates. Okay, so what can we do about it? Well, here comes price discrimination. Price discrimination is the practice of charging different consumers different prices for the same product. And generally speaking, in English language, the word discrimination has a negative feel to it. Discrimination is bad, it's a negative, but I hope to convince you in the next couple of minutes that price discrimination is actually a good thing. So, let's look at my customers here. I am the monopolist. The customers here are willing to pay more than the price. They are mine. I've captured them already, so I don't care about them. The customers here are the ones that are willing to pay less than what it cost me to produce. I do not care about them either. If your willingness to pay is less than my cost of production, then, well, sorry, but we go our separate ways. An interesting segment is right here. And this is the segment that we will focus on. So these are the customers who are willing to pay less than the full price that I'm going to charge, but are actually willing to pay more than what it costs me to produce. What's the solution? Student discount. Here we go. Right here. I will set a price. I'll call it PST, student. And I'm capturing this population right here. Think of it, before I even go into the graph, let me block it up. Think about this from the efficiency point of view. Am I happy as a provider of this service or good? Yes, of course, because I'm capturing more consumers who are still willing to pay more than my cost. Are the students happy? Yes, they can get to see a movie or play bowling or whatever it is that they do, an activity that they wouldn't be enjoying otherwise. So there are no losers here. Instead, what happens is this. This is now monopolist's extra profit. And again, remember what I said a couple of minutes ago. We don't care who gets the surplus, who gets the profit, as long as someone does. What happens to my deadweight loss? It disappears. Well, no, it doesn't disappear. It reduces, it diminishes. So the conclusion is price discrimination is efficient. And in reality, you go to a movie theater, what do you see? You see a student price, you see a senior citizen price, you see a price for families, you see probably 7 or 8 different prices. What is this monopolist? Well, wouldn't call movie theater a monopolist exactly, but they certainly do have market power. They're trying to completely eliminate these unshaded areas. They're trying to completely capture that deadweight loss and turn it into their profit. We will be discussing this much more in class. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in another video.